Two mortal enemies get reunited. This is your look at the NECA Toys Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie Splinter vs. Shredder. Now you can catch America's favorite green teens in their first live-action blockbuster film. After waiting in a puddle of radioactive waste, these radical reptiles are transformed into New York City's greatest crime-fighting quartet, in part thanks to the training of their skilled sensei, the similarly transformed rat Splinter. Their biggest enemy, the Shredder, a ruthless leader of the Foot Clan, a criminal organization that's terrorizing the city. These highly detailed action figures stand 6.5 to 7 inches tall and features 30 points of articulation, movie-accurate accessories, interchangeable hands, and intricately tailored, tattered robe and cape. Before we get a closer look at Shredder and Splinter, the first thing, of course, we're going to do is figure out how tall the figures actually stand. I'd like to thank the folks over at NECA Toys that provided the sample of Shredder and Splinter that we're having a look at in this review. If you'd like to get this set for yourself, it's available right now in retail stores and online as well. Shredder stands 7.4 inches, or I guess you could say 7.5 inches in height. And switching that to centimeters, then you're looking at the figure standing 18.7 centimeters tall. Switching that now back to inches, because of course now we're going to get the measurements for Splinter, taking it right to the very top. PF, of course, is a lot smaller than Shredder. And stopping it right there. There we go. There we go. According to the trusty tape measure of mine, Splinter stands 5.2 inches in height. And switching that again to centimeters, then you're looking at the sensei being 13.4, or almost 13.5 centimeters tall. Now, through the course of this review, I'm going to do some comparisons with this set of Shredder and Splinter and compare it over to the SDCC Capture of Splinter set, which, as you recall, was only available for a convention exclusive, but it came with the Shredder, it came with the Splinter, and it came with 2 foot soldiers. Independently, NECA has also released the sets, the ones that we're going to be looking at right here with Shredder and Splinter, but they also have released a 2-pack foot soldier. So if you didn't get a chance to get that initial SDCC release, don't worry, NECA's got you covered. They released them actually independently, 2 sets, 2 packaged figures. The one that we're looking at here, and like I said, the foot soldier. So you basically have all those figures. The neat thing about this particular lineup, these 2 figures that we're going to be looking at in this review, is they come with unique accessories that weren't even part of the Capture of Splinter set. Ooh, stay tuned. But in the meantime, for a couple of other comparisons we can bring in, let's bring in a foot soldier. This actually was the foot soldier, not that it really has that much different between the paint job, but this one was the one that was released in the 2-pack foot soldier set that I just recently had a look at, if you'd like to check that video out. And then, of course, some other comparisons we can bring in. We're going to obviously need to bring in some turtles, so we're going to bring in Michelangelo, and we're going to bring in Leonardo. I have gotten frequently this particular question I'm about to say right now. What is your favorite NECA figure? And I have a good list of figures, but one figure I never seem to remember to say whenever somebody asks me the question, what's your favorite NECA figure? One of them has to be Leonardo. He is by far one of my favorite NECA figures that they've ever produced. I'm so glad I still have this guy in my collection. But to kind of give you an idea of how these 2 figures stack up with some of the other movie turtle figures that NECA Toys have also produced. Now, I figured before we get down to comparing how these figures differ from the ones that were released for San Diego, instead what we would focus our efforts first on is looking at the accessories that come included with this set. While some of them make appearances, the greater part of the accessories are exclusive to this set, and I feel validate the reasoning for why you would want to pick up this one, even if you already have the Capture of Splinter set. So let's have a look at those right now. One thing that's neat that comes included with this set, let's spin this around so you guys can actually see it, is a canister of TCRI mutagen. The neat thing about it is you can actually open it up, and while it doesn't hold anything inside, you can certainly use your imagination, or you can probably get some rather green-looking slime and just simply add it inside the canister. It's been very nicely painted, as you can see there. I thought this actually was a sticker, and the way I'm peeling against it, I feel like actually it's been printed on instead. But you can see on the side, it says radioactive material, and there is also that little crack that's located on the side. That is a really neat touch. I'm glad to see they include that. This was not released as part of the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, so that's pretty cool. We'll put that to the side. Something else that didn't come included with that set was a piece of, I can't tell whether it's smushed like somebody has stepped down on a pizza, or if it's a case where, I mean, it kind of looks like there's a hand right here, like somebody has squashed it with their hands. It could simply just be the case where it's been thrown, like thrown this way, or again, somebody just stepped on it. But there's definitely an indicator that the pizza's been pressed down, and the cheese is sort of oozed up on all the sides around it. You can see there's some pepperoni, possibly mushrooms, possibly peppers. I don't know if I would say anchovies on there, but a really nice looking detailed crust on the pizza as well. And again, this didn't come included at all with the Capture of Splinter set. Putting that to the side, another thing that comes included with this one that had made no other appearances is a pair of slippers. Slippers for Splinter. And I think that's a nice touch, the fact that they would have included this. Now, I already have in my mindset the idea of how I want to display these figures different than the ones I displayed the other time before. And I do think, certainly when it comes to displaying Splinter, I'm most definitely going to display him with the slippers. All you have to really do is take the figure, slide it onto his rat feet, and somehow it's a perfect size. He just happens to find in the sewer a pair of slippers that's exactly the size of his rodent feet. I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to question that. But as you can see, they fit quite snugly onto his feet. And they're definitely not going to be going anywhere. The neat thing about it, though, is that they're also quite flat. So it does help enable some additional stability when it comes to putting the figure down. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. I love the fact that he comes included with those. He does also come included with some hands. Now, I don't know if you remember, if you had picked up the San Diego version of this guy, Splinter didn't come with any hands whatsoever. Shredder came with hands, but Splinter did not. So this is an opportunity for you to get some extra hands to use with either one of your Splinters. And because they are using the exact same mold for both Splinters, ideally you could use either one of these hands. So if you want to have this one as a pointing gesture for your other Splinter, actually, let's just go through all of these so you guys can see. It does come with a pair of pointing hands. That's a nice touch. I like that. He also comes with I don't know if I would necessarily say A-OK hands. They almost sort of look like they should be holding chopsticks, but he comes with a pair of these hands as well. And last, but certainly not least, Splinter also comes with a pair of gripping hands also. The neat thing about it is the fact, again, if you want to display your Splinters in two different diorama setups, you finally now have the means to have him actually holding weapons, being the fact he's actually got gripping hands. I do like the fact that he comes included with that. And last but certainly not least, he also comes with the nunchuck. Now you could say this is the nunchuck from the very end of the movie. It's been painted all here in brown with the string still attached to the top done in black. I want to bring in the one that came included with the Capture of Splinter set to show you that they are in fact not the exact same. This was all done in black. The only other nunchuck that came included with the other Capture of Splinter set was one that actually had a chain attached to it. So you can see that they do differ from one another. They're not exactly the same. While they may have maybe shared the same mold, they are definitely not the same paint job. And this has like these little notches along the top area here. So you do get those as slightly unique accessories that weren't present with the other release that we'd gotten before. For Shredder, though, he gets pretty much more of the same. If you had already picked up, again, I'm saying this probably frequently in this review, but if you picked up the Capture of Splinter set, you may be disappointed to see that Shredder doesn't get any other accessories than the ones that he had gotten in that release. He does come included with that spear weapon that he uses to attack the turtles. This doesn't change at all to the one that he had gotten before in that other release. You can see it's still nice and painted in silver with a center section done all in black. But again, this doesn't change at all from the previous release. He does also come included with the dagger, the little knife that he goes to pull. And you can see it fits inside the sheath, just similar to the one that we had gotten also in that San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. Pulls right out. There's really no place to actually put it on Shredder. I mean, if he had, for example, I mean, there is like a little sash, for example, on the side, similar to what the Foot Soldier had. He has this little sash. I guess technically you could bring this out a little bit, take the knife and fit it around to the back. You can just sort of conceal it back there. But it doesn't really have any other hooking on place where you can actually put that if you want to. I'll probably just for the time being put that on the back of the figure. Now for me, I'm probably going to likely display Shredder with his mask off. I'll want to talk a little bit more about that in a second when we kind of compare the figures. He does also come with some interchangeable hands. Currently in the sockets, he's got some relaxed hands, or he's got closed fists, but he also comes included with some relaxed hands. I just noticed I just dropped one, so I'm going to have to go and retrieve that. But he does come with an open, relaxed hand. That does have the blade, of course, on the end. He does also have a gripping hand to ideally hold the accessories it comes included with. And he also comes with just a regular hand for this side, allowing him to grip and hold things. He did also come with a relaxed hand, which I just so happened to have just quickly picked up there. And you can see, yeah, it's just a relaxed version of the other one that we looked at, just minus, of course, that blade that isn't attached to this side. So those are basically all the accessories, and the only other thing that comes included with Shredder, draping in front of the camera and startling, I'm sure, the viewing audience, he does also come included with his cape. Now, the cape came included, yes, I know, I sound like a broken record, he came also included with the Capture Splinter set. And it does have a wire frame running down the side, so you can bend and manipulate that if you want. It's only really on the edges that he does have that wire frame. And then he has a clasp that just attaches to the front. It's a little harder to kind of do this on camera, but he has like a little clasp that just latches on like so. Fit that in place. And it actually can fit around his neck. Now for me, when I usually put it on the figure, and I certainly have done this with the other case of Shredder, I usually just drape it around. And I find with the wireframe, and of course most definitely tucking it underneath his helmet, I find it's more than enough to kind of keep it clasped together. The clasp is actually very difficult to kind of get in there once you've got that wrapped around his torso. I did have it actually kind of displayed like this currently in my collection, but the neat thing about it is because we now have a secondary Shredder to work with, I may likely display the Shredder with the cape on one, and then when it comes to this release, I'm going to go ahead and remove the mouth plate. But I suppose I probably should, instead of doing that right away, let's bring in actually the other Shredder so you guys can see the difference between the two. I find Shredder has more than notable difference between this was the one, of course, that we were looking at in this review, and this is the one that came included with the Capture Splinter set. Not only is his eyebrows a lot darker on the initial release, but I noticed that the paintwork, especially on his eyes, is a little bit darker on Shredder. I find it's actually the opposite when we look at Splinter, so don't worry, we'll do some comparisons of those in a second. But you can see like the costumes aren't that much different. I have the one collar here that is lifting up on the figure. I don't have as much the issue on this side. It seems to really stay more in place. But there's really nothing that's different between the two figures. You could just chalk it up to maybe a little more richer of a color on the older release, and more so into the helmet. But like the rest of the bodies stay pretty much the same. There really isn't much at all changed between the two. But with both of them, they both have the case where you can go ahead and remove the mouth guard. You just sort of go ahead and just pop that off. And you've got yourself the regular Shredder face. The other Shredder actually did have that as well. Let's go ahead and just remove that so you guys can see. Pop that right off. And just to show you, there's no difference of expression underneath. I guess they could have possibly thrown an Easter egg in there where they could have given us a more angrier looking expression on Shredder's face where you really wouldn't even see it until you go ahead and take the mouth plate off. But going back to a previous point I was making though, I was probably going to be displaying one of the Shredders with his mouth plate off and then keeping the other one on, just again to make them look a little more different from one another. We'll move this Shredder out of the way. Let's have a look at the articulation on Shredder, and then we'll go to looking at Splinter. His head rotates back and forth. It's on a ball joint after all. So you can move the head down, you can move the head up, and you can rock it back and forth. Yes, I know it's a little more jarring seeing him without the mouth guard. Let's go ahead and put that back on. By the way, actually, when you are putting it on, let me just peel the sides away so you can see there's little tabs. See there on one side? There's one on the other side there. All you really have to do is take the guard, and you can see how it tabs on either side. Basically just fit it in, and then when you've got it far enough on his face, you sort of just push the sides in to make sure it latches onto those tabs. It takes a couple of times, of course. You may not do it the first time successfully, but just line it up, and then, like I said, you just fit that in place like so. There we go. All right, let's resume where we were where we were at least, his head moves up and down, it rocks back and forth, and you can technically rotate it back and forth, but due to the nature of how long that helmet stretches back, of course, it goes without reasoning that when he hits the sides of his shoulders, though they are smaller, he is still going to be butting up against that, and it may limit then what you can actually do when it comes to the figure's head articulation. As for the arms hinge out. You can't quite pull off a full 90-degree angle bend. And I noticed on this particular shredder, the joints are a little tight. Still don't have any issues with figures breaking. That lately seems to be a thing that a lot of people are talking about. And honest truth, all the figures I'm looking at on this channel, I've had maybe 2 or 3 figures that have actually had broken joints. More so the earlier cult classic figures, which were more susceptible to using clear pegs. These newer figures, I don't really have any general issues with them. If you have issues with joints, you can always go the route of heating them up. Don't just take them out of the packaging and start forcing them around. Because if you're going to do that, of course, that's when you may run the risk of breaking the joints. But if you are careful with them, you heat them up, if necessary, of course. Sometimes you don't even have to do that. The arms more than comfortably move back and forth. I don't have any issues whatsoever. It does have a double hinge on the elbow. You can rotate the arm back and forth, and you can also rotate the hand all the way around, depending on whatever hand you decide to go with. He has an upper torso ball joint. He doesn't have as much the full range, but he still allows the top torso to move all the way around. He does have the split on the legs. A little tighter again, but I mean, not enough that it's caused me problems. You can move the legs back and forth. He has a swivel on the top cut of the thigh. He has a single hinge, actually a double hinge on the knee. It's just the secondary hinges at the back bottom there. And again, you just bend that like that. He has the double hinge joint. And then when it comes to his feet, up and down, back and forth, he has an ankle pivot. And you can technically rotate the feet all the way around. Just in case you're also curious, Shredder does have peg holes on the undersides of his feet. So if you have any difficulty with the figure standing, simply just use a NECA display stand. That's, after all, why they made them. So that is Shredder. Again, when you really compare him to the Shredder that we had gotten before, there really isn't a lot that's different. But because he does have the introduction of the cape, which really was available in the other set release also, and because he does have the removable mouth guard, you technically could display Shredder in 2 different ways. So I think, again, it validates picking this set up if you already have the SDCC release. Now, Shredder just vanished for a second. It simply was just so I could bring in the other Splinter that was released as part of the Capture of Splinter set. And that's this one right here. When we have a look at the two, there's nothing that's different between the two. I think the paint has changed slightly on the face, but it could be on a figure-to-figure basis. I don't think they've necessarily upgraded the paint to the face, the head portrait. I think they're exactly the same. The costumes are also identical to one another. If you are curious, for example, like I'll pick up the two so you guys can see, like the rips and everything seem to be in the exact same place. So in case you thought like the Capture of Splinter would have had a more tattered looking robe, it seems to be the same when you look at both figures. Of course, the big notable calling card when it came to the Capture of Splinter set was the fact he did have the shackles. My only real concern with that set was the fact that there really wasn't a proper means to hold the shackles up. I guess you could have always taken like a little push pin, fed it through one of the links of the chain and attach it behind the figure. And then again, you could have had him more shackled. Now, because I do have now this secondary Splinter, I'm still more inclined to probably display this Splinter shackled and still captured by the foot. And again, it would be all the more reasoning why I don't need to then take off the shackles. But if you look at the two figures side to side, the head sculpts are identical to one another. But what I did say, though, is with the newer release, I don't know if it's just me. It's not the case where I feel like the eyes are larger, but almost in a way that they've been painted, they do come across like they're slightly bigger. It's really strange. I mean, when you look at the two, I feel like the fur is painted better on the newer release, which is the opposite of what I felt with Shredder. Shredder had more richer color I felt on the original. I feel like you get a better paint job here, though, on Splinter. Now, there also was the Splinter exclusive, which, remember, it was the Spirit of Splinter. So technically, this guy has now been released 3 different times over. But his gi or robe is exactly the same. It looks like the discoloration is pretty much in the same place, but again, your figure may differ from my figures here because they're probably going in, they're hand painting them. We spin the figures around to the back. You can see there's not really much that's different. Yes, the holes could be in different places, but again, I don't think there's a rhyme or reason why specifically they targeted some areas to open those holes up, and other places they didn't. I think they probably just go in there and they just make holes in the fabric. But the discoloration is roughly about the same, so I don't think there's much that's changed from one to the other. But being, again, that this one does have now the slippers, I think more inclined I'll be displaying this one with the other turtles. And then this one I'm going to be displaying perhaps maybe with Shredder with his cape, so I can then still keep him displayed and keeping the shackles in place. We're going to move this guy out of the way, and looking, of course, at the articulation on Splinter, it would be the exact same on the other one. So his head does rotate back and forth. It does have, again, that ball joint. And then, I don't know if you can see it or not, so I'll do my best to move this out of the way. He does actually have a secondary ball joint right below. You couldn't have even seen it if the robe was not covering it. But there's actually a secondary ball joint right here, right at the top, and then right below here. It's a little bit darker, admittingly, than the rest of his head. But again, keeping in mind that the robe's going to be covering over it, the darker coloring of the plastic sort of gives him a natural shadow that his head would have been casting onto the rest of his body. He does have a lower torso ball joint. His legs, let me just bring these out so you guys can see. He does have the hinge joint on the legs, moving them forward and back. I'm surprised actually that the slippers have not fallen off just yet. Hinge joint on the back of the leg. Then he, of course, has the articulation on the feet. Let's just move one of these off so you guys can see. And then he does also have toe articulation as well. Arms move out. You can move them forward and back. He has a swivel on the bicep, bend at the elbow. And then he also has a rotation in the hands. Did I already say I love the fact that he does also now come included with brand new hands? I think I already did say that. But that is Splinter. I love the fact that they gave him, of course, the slippers. And if you do have some difficulty, of course, he does also have the wire frame in the tail. That does give him some additional stability. Sort of serves, let's just get his feet to straighten up here, sort of ends up serving as a bit of a tripod. And normally it wouldn't be giving me any bit of an issue, but of course now that it's recording, let's get that tail just to straighten up. There we go. So again, ideally, even though technically these are the same figures, let's bring Shredder in once again, the same figures that we had gotten before, it goes to show that NECA still throws enough at these figures that warrants, again, picking this set up, even if you already have the Capture of Splinter set. At face value, collectors may pass on picking up this set if they already got the Capture of Splinter, thinking to themselves, well, I already have a Splinter and Shredder, why would I invest the additional funds to pick up this set? Until you realize, upon closer inspection, there's a lot more going on to this set than you may think. Interchangeable hands for Splinter is certainly a big plus. He gets himself slippers, a TCRI canister, and a slice of pizza. Not to mention as well, being that he does have interchangeable hands, he has a lot more of customization that you can not only do to this figure, but even like the original Splinter that we got in that previous set. Shredder doesn't change too much. He gets pretty much the same offerings as he got before, and I think it would have been a prime opportunity to incorporate an Easter egg with this Shredder, where if you removed his mouth guard, he would have had more a yelling expression, something you wouldn't have been able to see until you took the mouth plate off. Short of that, I do feel like this, again, validates picking this set up. If you already have the other one, that's fine and good. But I think there's enough going for this set that I think picking it up is still an asset to your collection. You can then display Splinter with the other turtles. You can keep the shackled Splinter still strung up. And you have two different ways that you can display the Shredder, with and without his cape, with his mouth guard or without. I definitely think that this is a great set still to pick up, even if you already have the other one in your collection. A big thank you to the folks over at NECA Toys that provided the sample of the Splinter versus Shredder that we had a look at in this review. And again, if you're looking to pick up the set for yourself, it's available right now in stores and online as well. If you are new to the channel and liking all the content, there you go, that you're seeing here on a regular basis, and you haven't yet done so, hit that subscribe button down below. Turn, of course, that bell notification as a way of telling YouTube you want to get those notifications when new videos are popping up. And also just know that Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when you'll find new videos popping up. There's always new content coming your way, and a ton of NECA reviews lined up and coming your way as well. So keep your peepers peeled for that. Weigh in your thoughts down below. Let me know what you guys think of this set. And if you already have the SDC exclusive, whether you would still be interested in picking up this set for yourself. Always like reading your comments down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.